Greetings, I am Tom Merle. Welcome back to this special series of the celebration called Gifts for You. If you haven't yet, I suggest you go back to the very first episode of this series. Not the entire podcast, just this series. That's the first episode that came out in 2022. It'll tell you all about what this series is about. If you don't feel like doing that, though, don't worry, my friends. You can jump right in here and still have a great time. Now, just as a reminder, while this intro for this episode might sound very similar to last week's, have no worries. This week, we bring you another fresh set of deep, insightful, and meaningful conversations. Today, we're going to dive even deeper into this time capsule that we're opening by listening to another set of conversations that I recorded in 2019, just before my daughter was born. And so without further ado, I'll step aside and I hope you enjoy. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of this special project.
Of course, yeah. I'm excited.
So why don't we start by sharing what are we doing right now?
One of our famous haircuts.
So I'm getting my hair cut right now. So if you hear snippies and all these kind of things, that's the noise. Do you think you'd be willing to cut or style or hook my child up with beautiful hair?
I would be honored to do that.
Will you help me? Like show me how to cut or style my child's hair too?
Of course, I will.
So let's start by, you can introduce yourself. So I want you to introduce yourself to my child. You can share your name. And I want you to share what your name means to you.
Okay, so my name is Ashlee Tezino. What my name means to me, that's a good question. Well, I know it reminds me to stay different, to stay unique and kind of weird in my own way, because my name is so common. So I like having something that makes me stand out from all the other Ashlees.
That's awesome. So I wanted to interview you for a number of reasons, but one is I was wondering if you could share with my baby how your relationship with learning has changed over the years.
That's a good question too. Well, initially I thought that it was just something that I had to do. It was more of a obligation. But then as I got a little older, graduated from high school, took a few college classes, and kind of understood myself more, I realized that learning is fun. Learning is so much fun, and it's so useful to my life and to the things that, I can do, I can show others to do, or I can help others. It's really been like a lifeline for me, being able to maneuver through the world and have all the knowledge that I need simply because I'm just willing to go out there and ask for it and find it. And that's kind of been empowering in a way.
But she didn't always feel that way. So with babies potentially rolling their eyes at us, being like, Tom, stop having your friends propagandize me. What's your advice if baby 2 is in middle school or high school and listening to this? Like, Ashlee lied to me. School sucks.
Well, find something about it that you find interesting. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, like, you are gonna have to go through middle school and high school and college. And so because you have to, you might as well make it interesting and find things about it that you find interesting, things that you want to learn, you want to know more about, you want to explore, that way you can really use it as a tool as opposed to just something that you have to do.
I like that. So you're at a stage in your life right now where you're an expert in your field and you're about to switch or add an additional field to your repertoire that you will eventually be an expert in, but you're almost starting over. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of curiosity.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I was just going to leave it out there and see how you interpreted that as a question. Because I just want you to talk about that. Like, you know, where did you find that courage or curiosity, or even if it's a practical reasons, and, you know, just wanted to have you talk about that a little bit, because I think that's a big part of life, is having the courage to change, especially when you're going from being an expert to, you know, a novice. Or is a novice a beginner?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the motivation to, like, improve myself is always there. But to actually, like, step out and do it is scary, you know? And a lot of times, you know, I'm sure baby will have a very supportive family. So a lot of times when you're in that situation, your biggest kind of naysayer can be yourself. You know, you can find out all these reasons why it would be hard or why it would be scary or things like that. But you kind of have to just do it anyways. You know, if it's something you feel like you want to go after and it's something that a goal that you want to achieve, then don't talk yourself out of it. You know, like, just kind of just go for it anyway, because you're not always gonna feel like it's 100% right away. You know, like, sometimes you kind of have to just step into it and go from there. You know,
I do. I love that. What's your advice for a baby being born in 2020 with all that's going on?
I guess maybe just, like, awareness and the ability to not only be someone who is convincing and someone who is motivating, but also somebody who listens. Because especially, like, in your younger years, you're gonna have a lot to say, you know. Like, I mean, that's just like what you know, being a young person comes with, you know. And it feels good to know a little bit more than you did before, but at the same time, you're also still learning, and there's so much out there to learn, you know, not just book learning, but you can learn from other people's mistakes. You can learn from other people's stories. You could learn from the past and history. And sometimes, you know, it just takes listening and, you know, having someone that's older, even if you don't agree with them, or even if what they're saying you feel like doesn't pertain to you or isn't as important, just listen. And sometimes some of those lessons will, like, come back around on you. You know, even when you're not, like, thinking about it or ready for it, or you stored it away in your mind and you thought that you would never use that piece of information, and yet one day, like, it comes in handy. You know, so just never be too smart to listen or learn.
I love that. I love that. Especially to your father. What? Who said that? So, there's a lot of unknowns about baby. We don't know their assigned gender at birth, what their gender will be as they grow up and decide that for themselves. We don't necessarily know what they're going to look like. And we also don't know fully yet what their hair texture will be. But I imagine growing up as someone who's Black in America, it is going to be a big part of their life. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your hair journey, or any advice or words of affirmation that you might want to share with them?
Let's see. My hair journey. Well, I guess my hair journey was interesting because, like, I love hair and I love to be creative with it. I started off with, what was cool in the culture then. Everybody wants to straighten their hair. And at like 8 years old, I had a straightener in my hair. And early on, maybe like around 11, I decided to kind of try different things. And the straightener and plus me trying different things broke all of my hair off. So I guess the moral of the story is to just love what you have. Because, I mean, it's best to just go ahead and embrace it and just, know that it's one of those things, just one of those unique factors about you, So whatever it is, it's beautiful and it's exactly what you were meant to have. And I love it, and I'm sure you're going to love it too.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Kind of on that same line, so we know that our child is mixed, but that society is going to perceive them as someone who's Black. Mm-hmm. Do you have any words of affirmation or anything you want to share with them as a young person growing up as Black in America?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard to say because, I don't want to put any pressure on baby. But sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes you kind of feel that more possibly might be expected of you. People might think that you can tolerate more pain and that you're strong, which is not, being strong is a good thing, but still at the same time, don't let anybody put you in a box. Don't be afraid to feel your feelings or to portray some sort of image of who society expects you to be. Just be who you are, just be who you are and stick up for those who feel like they can't be who they are, who feel like they can't be who they are or who feel marginalized somehow. Just always be a person that speaks up and protect those who maybe sometimes can't protect themselves, and that's just another way of you being who you are, which then it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how society thinks you should act. You're just being genuinely who you are, and I don't know. I hope that helps.
No, that was amazing. And I know I'm putting you on the spot with personal questions, so I appreciate that. Two more questions. Mm-hmm. What can baby turn to you for? Or it can be a prompt. Baby, you can always turn to me when or if or when you need.
Baby, you can always turn to me if you need someone to talk to that's never gonna judge you, never gonna put you in a box, and who is always gonna tell you the truth as I see it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
You took another inhale. Were you gonna say something else?
No, I think that kind of embodies it all. Yeah.
Okay. And last question, what is your invitation for them? What would you like to invite them to? reflect upon, to consider, to do, to risk? What's your invitation?
I invite baby to I invite baby to I mean, if you're in middle school listening to this, I don't know if this is going to be so helpful, but this will definitely be helpful in your older self. I invite you to live a life that you're proud of. You know, like, one of the things I say is, like, you know, everything comes to light, so you don't want to do nothing in the dark that you're ashamed about. You know, just be genuinely who you are and be proud of the decisions that you made, you know. In order to be proud of the decisions that you make, you know, you really have to think about them and consider all things. And that would be my invitation to you, I invite you to live a life that you will be proud of.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait to meet you, baby.
Wonderful. Well, Sam, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this. It means the world to me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. So
we're going to start with a little icebreaker that I made up. I'm sure you've never heard of this one before, ever in your entire life. You're going to share your name and what your name means, or a story about your name.
Oh, wow. Okay. My name is Samira, but I go by Sam. My name is like in Arabic, Samir means wind, and Urdu Arabic, Samir means wind. And I think my name is like just the feminine version of that. I got my name because my mom is Hindu and my dad is Muslim. And my mom was trying to figure out a way to give me a name that would make both sides of the family happy. My dad's side of the family is very particular that I have a Muslim name because I'm a Muslim girl. And what my mom did was, my grandmother's best friend on my mom's side, who's my grandmother who's Hindu, her best friend is Muslim. So her daughter had a daughter and named her Samira. So my mom took that as an opportunity and said, I'm just going to name my kid Samira. And then my mom can't be upset about it because it's her best friend's granddaughter's name. And my dad's side of the family can't be upset about it because it's an Arabic name. So everybody wins. And so I acquired the name Samira. Except she changed the spelling out. That was the only difference. That's about it.
I love that. Sounds like some nice interfaith bridging right from the gate.
Right at the gate. My mom is all about that strategy. Yeah.
So, on that note, baby's going to be growing up in an interfaith family at our house too. Adora's Christian. I'm Muslim. Can you share a little bit about, how you found your own definition for your relationship with something greater than yourself? What was that like for you? What does that look like today? Any advice you want to share on that, or insights?
Well, I certainly hope that for your baby, the journey will be a lot easier, because if you're doing this video, then clearly you understand that growing up in a cross-religious household can be beneficial depending on how you teach your young human. And it can be incredibly hurtful depending on how you teach your young human. So I grew up Hindu on my mom's side of the family, Muslim on my dad's side of the family, and I went to a Christian school. My Christian school, however, was very, very secular and taught the Bible from a place of like a lot of compassion and love, and from a place of, we're all equal. And these are just stories that we're learning so we can develop morals and values as we grow older, not just as students, but as human beings as well. On my mom's side of the family, they're very liberal Hindus. And my grandmother was a very pious woman, very loving, pious woman, right? So she would teach me everything about Hinduism. And I think the spirituality, if you ask me what like faith tradition, mainstream faith tradition I connect with the most, it's Hinduism, because of the way I was taught. Literally nothing else, just because of the way that I was taught. And I think how we teach something is so important, as opposed to what exactly we are teaching, right? I mean, the lessons are always there. All religions are trying to teach the same thing. And so from my mom's side of the family, my grandmother taught me Hinduism through a lot of like storytelling, a lot of bedtime stories when I used to spend a lot of time with her in the summer. And so I developed a lot of affection for the religion, because of her faith in it, because of the compassion that she brought to our relationship and her life in general, because of her faith in it, and the manner in which she and my grandfather existed. My grandmother is a pious Hindu who was raised Hindu in a Hindu family, and my grandfather was an ardent atheist. And they were married for 61 years in like the most harmonious union I have ever seen in my life. So that affection too for each other, where, you know, religion was not, it was a coming together. It was never and it was a very personal thing for each of them. It was never a point of contention for anybody at any given point in time. All of our rituals, all of our visits to temples, so on and so forth, was just very, very cup filling, very soul filling. Like you wanted to do it, you know, like you wanted to go hang out with your family. You wanted to go to the temple. You wanted to learn the history. You wanted to say the prayers. You wanted to say the traditions because it made you feel a sense of belonging. It made you feel like there was something to it, right? And at no given point in time was anything dismissed or anything tried to be explained away. Hinduism is also a very queer religion, which, I mean, of course, she didn't teach me from a queer lens, obviously. But growing up, after a certain point in time, I started putting two and two together and being like, Grandma, I don't think you know this, but that's what you call trans. That's what you call gender non-conforming, right? So I'd see those things and pick those up. On the flip side, on my father's side of the family, I have a very conflicted relationship with Islam because of my father's side of the family, not with religion, but because the way that I was raised in it. There are just a lot of pieces of it that are triggering for me, not because of the religion itself or what it teaches, but because of the connections that I make back to the religion because of muscle memory. You know, like you make those connections to sight, sound, smells, right? So in the same way, when I hear a certain verse, or when I hear a certain kalima, or, you know, something like that, it triggers an unpleasant memory in my mind. And I'm currently working through how to get over that. You know, I'm working through rebuilding or not even rebuilding. I never had an opportunity to build my relationship with Islam. So building my relationship with Islam. But the manner in which they taught it was very oppressive. It was very autocratic, very dictatorial. This is what we are telling you, and this is what you should believe. Don't ask any questions. Very much that blind faith ideology as opposed to an inquisitive ideology. So my advice for your baby would be for the parents, not so much for the child, right? Teach your young human, come from a place of compassion, come from a place of love, and then let them do whatever they want to do with it. I came from such a conflicting space when it came to religion. I denounced religion from the age of being 11 because of my father's side of family. I completely denounced religion for a solid, I don't know, like 16 years, 15, 16 years. And I'm one of the most spiritual human beings I have ever met. A highly spiritual human, because I gave myself the opportunity of choice when nobody else did. But no child should have to think for themselves. I'm going to defy everything, even though I feel like everybody hates me in this moment, and give myself the opportunity of choice. It is the adult's responsibility to let the child know you always have choice. Choice is at the forefront of anything. So if you start from that place, I think you're young human, you will be absolutely fantastic in your spiritual journey.
I love that. Thank you for that, Sam. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
One thing I really appreciate about you is in past interviews we've done with you and conversations, all these kind of things, is really creating language and space for people to feel like they don't have to be in boxes when it comes to gender or sexual orientation or gender expression. Can you talk about that or share any advice with baby if they're feeling at all ever like in those areas that society's trying to keep them in a box, or they feel like they might not be what society's trying to say is the standard, but they want to express themselves in a unique way that's individualist to them?
Mm-hmm. Maybe if society is ever putting you in a box, you call Uncle Sam. I will take care of it. But outside of that, I'm hoping that by the time, you get to like being the age of 9, 10, 11-ish, where, outward expression is becoming a huge part of your identity, that we would have done the work, we would have taken on the responsibility and done enough of the work to make you feel like you don't need to be in a box. At the end of the day, it is all about your heart and it's all about who you are. Keep the people who love you close to you and maintain that solidarity in your life relationships. always ensure that you are loving others the way that you want to be loved. And that when society is trying to put you in a box, go through that journey. Don't deny yourself that journey. It's a hard journey, but go through it. If you are questioning why you are feeling the pressure of being put in a box, answer that question. Answer that question on your own terms. And then break that box, right? Once you know the answers to the questions, it is the questions that keep us bogged down so much, because society asks us all these questions. Are you a girl? Are you a boy? Why do you dress like this? Why do you look like that, right? And we don't have the answers to those questions. That's what makes us feel like we're trapped in a box of questions, essentially. But once we have the answers, we can dismantle that box slowly but surely and then become exactly the answer that we want to be. So allow yourself that journey. Even though it's a difficult journey, don't coddle yourself. Allow yourself that journey. Allow yourself to go through it instead of getting over it. That's what I have to say.
I love that. Thank you for that, Sam.
Of course.
You're also a phenomenal poet. Can you share a little bit about expression and creativity and speaking your truth? Anything that you'd like to speak about?
I think words for me have always been my number one safe space. Strangely enough, standing on a stage in front of thousands of people makes me feel like I am at my safest in that moment, even though I might be at my most vulnerable, whatever that means. I feel like it is my safest space when I'm on stage. Words have never failed me. They've always been my number one form of expression. And like I was explaining to a young human poet the other day, I love poetry. I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it because it's a very cathartic experience. And nobody goes to therapy saying, I loved going through that process and all the trauma that it brought up, right? Nobody enjoys saying that. But what comes out at the end of it, that level of visibility, that level of connection that I have with the audience, that's what I love about poetry. All the conversations that happen after I finish my set, that's what I love about poetry. And I know for a fact, I think I've come to a place where I can say I know for a fact, I know that what I have to say is going to affect at least one person in that room that I'm in. And if it doesn't affect one person in that room that I'm in, then it affects at least one person who watches a video that I put up on social media or some quote that I put up on social media. And it's all about that person. It's not about me. It's about that one person who needed to hear it in that moment. And that's why words and poetry and continuing on this journey, even though it might not be, it's a loving one, but it's not an enjoyable one, feels worth it.
I love that. Is there anything you want to share with baby that I haven't asked, or that's just from the heart that you feel called to share?
I think the last and only thing that I will say to this wonderful baby is that you literally have a community from across the world, thanks to your parents. You have a community that will protect you with words. You have a community that will protect you with fists. You have a community that will protect you no matter what day or no matter what time of day or night it is. You have a community that will come to you and stand with you in solidarity, no matter who you choose to become. So choose to become. Be on your journey and choose to become every single day. That's what I'll say.
I love that. And 2 prompts for you.
Please.
Prompts. Baby, you can turn to me if you'd like to talk about, when you need. What would you say? Absolutely
anything, especially if you need to get away from your parents and just have like a cool uncle kind of talk. I got
you. That seems to be the common answers. I don't know what but I'm with
you. Work with young humans, man. Young humans don't always even if you have the coolest parents. I imagine when I have if I ever had children, right, which is not in the books, but if I had children, I would be the coolest parent on the planet, and they'd still be looking to talk to somebody else. Can't be insulted by that. Can't feel some type of way about it. Just gonna have to take it and run with it.
I 100% am about that life. I 100% agree. It's so helpful to have other caring adults besides your parents.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Last question for you. What is your invitation? What would you like to invite baby to do, think about, be, evolve into, consider? What is your invitation?
My invitation to the baby is come learn how to love animals with me. Animals are like my number one. It's where I started my social justice journey. I do believe controversially that animal rights are equal to human rights. And I wanted to have a pit bull rescue for dogs that have been put in fighting rings one day. And come learn how to love an animal. Come learn how to love a pit bull, and you will learn how to love all other creatures in your life. So I invite you to do that. Let me teach you how to love dogs.
You know what I love about that is I only had time for one more question, but if I had time for another question, it was going to be, tell me about your dog. So I feel like you tied it in perfectly. That was so wonderful.
Your kid gets to know Sherlock. Your kid will love anything on this planet. That's true love, man. That's true love.
Yes. Sam, thank you so much for being a part of my child's life. I so value our relationship has now spanned almost 7, 8 years.
Easy.
So I really appreciate that we've stayed in touch, and that you're going to continue to be involved in our lives. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And everything that I said on this interview is not lip service. I'm genuinely very happy that my friends are having babies, so I can be the cool uncle. So just let me do it.
Definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Sam. You're the best. Let's
All
talk
right. Take
soon.
care. All right. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed the conversations that I'm sharing with you this week. And I hope you return again next week to continue this series, Gifts for You, and continue to receive the insights, the messages, and if I can use the word again, the gifts that each conversation is ready to share with you. My friends, I thank you for being here with us this week, and I look forward to you returning again next week for the next edition of Gifts for You. As always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. See you next week. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.